on to our major event for this morning, which is a forum for information. And I want to introduce two folks to you. One is Tracy Ann Nelson, who's Director, Government Relations, External Coalitions, and Community Outreach with the Georgia Association of Educators, an organization that I've been a member of for 40 years, I think, and now I'm a member of the retired GAE-NEA. So let's, Ms. Tracy Ann Nelson, stand, please. Let's greet her. And then I'm going to go ahead and introduce our second speaker, who is Ms. Verdalia Turner, who is president of the Georgia Federation of Teachers, and she will be you can present this in any way that you've determined that you want to do it. But they're providing information. I was not a member of the Georgia Federation of Teachers, but we all, with GAE, worked together on a number of issues during all of those years. So we're two sister or brother organizations, unlike that other one. What's that other one? No, we won't call it. All right. Ms. Turner and Ms. Nelson.
Thank you. You can take the mic. Watch your step.
Good morning, church. Good morning, everybody. I want to say thank you first to Mount Olive Baptist Church, Missionary Baptist Church, and Reverend Price, and more importantly, to President of Gabio, who has been such a trooper for so long, Representative Tyrone Brooks, and he is the reason that we are actually on the agenda today, because back in January, he understood this legislation well ahead of its passage. So thank you, Tyrone, for allowing us to be here. So I think it's important that Verdalia and I talk together. This piece of legislation that was brought to us by the state legislature, we worked night and day from January to defeat, but were unsuccessful because there were sweet deals and gifts given out at the very end.
Arm twisting and also donations and a lot of courting by folk with a lot of money. Didn't come from the people. Came from special interest groups, this legislation did.
So it's going to take the people to turn it back.
Right.
It is a constitutional amendment, which means its legacy is long-lasting and will be much harder to change once in place. So we're urging you to understand the implications of it, and if you understand it, you won't help yourself but to vote no. Because the consequence will lie with our children the day after, the year after, 10 years after, 20 years after, because as a constitutional amendment, for it to be changed will take so much more.
That's right. It's not a law, it is an amendment.
It's an amendment to the Constitution. Verdalia, you want to? I have samples of what it says. I'll pass those on.
Okay. Let us play a little game like connect the dots. Have you noticed that there is a move to privatize everything?
Yeah.
Prisons, water, schools.
Yes.
In some places we go, we have to rent the air. I don't know if y'all noticed that in the airports. Well, this amendment was not necessary. Local school boards already have the authority, and they do create charter schools.
Yes.
And usually when that board turns down an application, it's based on the fact that the application isn't sound in regards to instruction and curriculum, or the institution cannot financially sustain itself, or their certificate is not renewed because they have not been financially responsible.
Right.
And suppose you say, okay, I'm going to make an application, and Mr. Jones or Mrs. Smith, they just, our politics don't agree. Then you make the application to the board turns it down, but you can always go to the Georgia Board of Education, and guess what? The governor appoints that Georgia Board of Education. Appoints.
Yeah.
So the question should be, why is this amendment necessary? It is not. We're going to break it down real fast for you. It's a power play and it's a play to get money. Now, Tracy's going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about, she'll get to these charts in a minute, but if we look at, and we're nonpartisan in this organizations, but it just so happens since the Republicans have been in office, we have lost over $5.5 billion from Georgia schools.
Wow.
They have taken money from Georgia schools. 4 school districts are flat broke. 20 school districts are sending our children and teachers home early, still furloughing. And 70 school districts are running deficits. But the population of Georgia has increased by 20% according to the last census of 2010. ESOL students, special needs students, etc., all that has increased, but yet still our government is cutting the budget. So you have to ask yourself the question, why are we creating a bigger government, especially a party that says they believe in smaller government? We are now going to create another department, giving us 129, which, by the way, those commissioners are already being paid 6-digit salaries.
Yes.
If we pass Amendment 1, millions of dollars, according to State Superintendent Barge, at least $500,000 a year, which is already going out for these schools. So you can, it'll be even more.
430.
What we're going to do is bankrupt public schools. The bedrock of democracy in our country, the only country that educates everyone. So this is about separatism. It's about separate and unequal, and it's a legal way of doing it.
So I'm going to break down the numbers for you so that you can make the connection between what's happening in your child's, your grandchild's, your niece, your nephew's schoolhouse and what's happening at the state legislature, okay? Sorry. So, Verdelli just mentioned that the cuts that have been sustained over the last several years equal to about $5 billion. Here it is.
Yes.
Okay? This year alone, $1.15 billion. For about 4 years, we've gone along with it quietly. We've said, okay, we understand, revenues are down.
So we screamed about furlough days.
We worry about the furlough days because the implications are not on the adults, it's on the children.
Amen.
Okay? 120 systems of 180 have less than 180 days of curriculum instruction. What does that mean for your child, or your neighbor's child, or your niece, or your nephew, or your grandchild? It means that they are not getting what they need academically to be successful in K through 12. So then the state beats up the school boards and the superintendents and the teachers. We don't determine that. They did. So what have school boards done with these cuts? Cut days, increased class sizes. My son's in a Spanish class of 42. 42 in a Spanish class. I'm living it. But I know the consequence is not as a result of actions superintendents have had to take or actions school boards have had to take. It's a result of what the state legislature has done and the leadership. Because the school boards are given their money, which continues to decrease. And what they then do is go, how do we make this up? They make it up by expanding class sizes, teacher furlough days, decreasing the number of curriculum days, and guess what else? Increasing millage rate. Where's that hitting you? Right in the pocket, because that's your money too.
Yes.
And so is this. So this is the state funding for public education. This is local funding for public education. So it is steadily increasing since 2002. So when you look on your tax bill from the county and you see that line from the school board, and it's going up. Why? Because this is going down. Make the connection. Now look, I don't want to beat up on school boards or superintendents, but they haven't been keeping legislators on their toes on this. We've been doing it.
Yes. There's an enabling bill also, I believe it's House Bill 797. That's the monster that comes along with this. House Bill 797 makes sure that these special schools will be funded at 2.5 times the rate of public schools. It's already there. Now, let us say something about these special schools. You notice I'm not using the word charter, I'm using special. Charter schools already exist. What this governor will be able to do, the same governor that, I'm just going to say it, but we talked about voter registration and voter ID, said let your ghetto grandmother go get her ID. Okay? The same governor that was a congressman that stepped down under suspicious circumstances, the same governor that, it looks like Watergate to me, that was given a dismissal by the person that was already the governor, okay, by appointing people who were prosecuted to the court. That's the governor we're talking about, okay? That's the governor. So this governor is now saying, give me all power. And what I'm going to do is appoint a commission that's not going to be responsible to you and I, one that you don't know, you don't appoint, you don't elect, and that commission is going to put up any type of school for anybody, anywhere. They can be 7 feet tall, 3 feet tall, pink hair or green hair, doesn't make any difference at all. And we're going to educate them the way we want to educate them. It's about money. It's about money. Also, under this, since we have lost Democrats in office, remember I'm nonpartisan, we've also given over $6 billion in special interest tax cuts to corporate Georgia. That's where the money is going. So money is there, but it's not for our children. These are the same people who are saying, now give me your blessings and allow me to control your schools.
This is the same people that gives $50 million to private school of your money in Georgia.
Now, people that say, what about charter schools? They ask us about that all the time. Did you know that the American Federation of Teachers and the NEA were major proponents of charter schools?
Yep.
And we were the institutions that helped invent charter schools. So we know what we're talking about. They've been around since 1991. Minnesota was the first state to start opening charter schools. And charter schools were supposed to be innovative, experimental organizations where teachers and students would get around the bureaucracy. And in saying that, if you look at states like Massachusetts, there's a direct correlation between higher standardized test scores, if that's how we want to measure our children, and where educators have input. See, Tracy and I know how Georgia is set up, right to work state. No wonder we are down at the bottom of the list, number 48 and number 49. Educators here are not respected as professionals. So the people that say, oh, I love teachers, I love them as long as they vote for me. I love teachers as long as they do what we say do. They do not respect teachers as professionals. When we're talking about also measuring our children, you know, school districts a lot of times, Tracy, they said, oh, the graduation rate is so low. Well, Georgia was one of the few states that didn't get, we did not get, what do we call it? All right, in other words, we didn't get a reprieve on this.
Oh, okay.
When we measure graduation rates, if our children graduate during the summer, or if they graduate special needs, we can't count those children. So therefore, those scores are already skewed. When we look at SAT scores, we test, all of our children in Georgia take the SAT, whether they're going to college or not. But when we compare ourselves to cacti, apples to cacti, those states are only testing students who are college bound.
Which is like between 20 and 30% compared to the 80 to 90% of our children who take the SAT.
That's right.
So
And when we look at the performance of charter schools, let's just talk about this for a minute. You know, I'm one of the colleagues, too bad we live in the same county, DeKalb, often talks about Waiting for Superman, this movie, Waiting for Superman. The same guy that helped sponsor We Won't Back Down, I don't know if y'all knew that or not. These same people that are associated with the Koch brothers, okay? What this representative does not tell the public is that that movie that features the school in Harlem also is aided by, supported by the Harlem Zone, which $45 million a year, what we call those wraparound services, are provided for those children. So we have decided in Georgia that our children don't need mentoring after school, that we close our schools down, that our children don't need technology or special tutors, or that our children don't need medical care and their parents don't need jobs. I don't want to ramble, but while I'm thinking about that, all the schools that succeed usually have wraparound services. And if you look at a few of the charter schools in Georgia, which are succeeding, the mean income is $65,000. And that's what they're comparing. Research also shows us is that if we, in the United States, accounted for the poverty factor, Mrs. Lucas, our schools outperform Finland. And that's the country that we're saying is the top industrialized country right now in terms of output for students. See, they're not telling us the truth. But this is, you notice now I said connect the dots.
Right.
We talked about the news. I was so glad somebody brought news media up. We usually keep 3 large school districts in the news. Atlanta.
Right.
The other day, Atlanta Journal-Constitution talked about the superintendent's contract went all the way back to the chief's county. Had nothing to do with it. And we can't understand, Tracy and I can't understand, if you're talking about 178 educators, if you haven't indicted them, how did their school district scores continue to go up for 10 years? What the rest of them?
That's right.
If that's the case, we talk about DeKalb County.
Right, there you go.
We don't tell the truth about Sacs, though.
No.
They can choose if they wanted to belong to Sacs or not. And we talk about Clayton. But you notice it's about governance. It's not about instruction. There's nothing wrong with instruction in those school districts.
Or curriculum.
But this is so that people would do what? Turn against public schools. I had a guy on call the network the other day, text, do you know anything about the cheating that da-da-da-da-da-da-da? Do you know anything about that? No. I said, I hope not. We're not going to take, because we don't talk about the thousands of children which graduate from our schools that not only go to Ivy League institutions, but go to technological institutions, go to the military. The reason why those red lights are working out there, the reason why we can still drink the water, we don't talk about that, okay? But we want to put down the public schools. I've got one more point, go ahead on. Oh, she told me to go ahead on. We want you to also look at what the Credo report is saying and what Ivy League institutions are saying, what the research is saying, valid, non-biased research over the years. Did you know that charter schools perform as well as public schools or not as well? They usually don't perform as well as public schools. So if we were putting as much attention on our children, those people that are going to the State House for vested interest, okay? If we were really looking at what it takes for schools to work, many of our schools are already working, and we would be far ahead of the game. But you know what's embedded in this is classism, Representative Brooks, classism. Separatism, they will separate us any way they can, by color, by race. Look, I've heard people say we're not going back. Oh, we're going back if we let this pass. And we're going back, and I'm going to go a little further. I know we're going to talk about the charter school amendment. We got to take our capital back. We have new Confederates holding our capital hostage. And I don't care if they look even like me. They got to do it. They got to. Tracy and I are already on that, aren't we, Tracy? We're going to be on it too. On November the 7th, Tracy and I take off, and we're going to need your help. You want them out of office.
All right.
Cordelia always teaches me. I appreciate her so much. And she and I just met this year, but I've learned so much working with her and learning from her as she continues to fight the fight for our kids. And I know sometimes people like to say that we only care about the teachers. Who do the teachers care about?
No.
They're in the classroom and on the buses every single day with our children, unlike anybody else. Nobody else does it.
Yeah, right.
We do. So you think teachers go in it, or bus drivers go in it to get rich?
No.
Clearly not. It's about the children. And if you're not listening to the people who do education every day, with our children every day, why would you listen to someone else? The superintendent of Georgia's school system, Dr. Barge, is essentially the CEO of public education in Georgia.
Right.
If he says, until we decrease or eliminate furlough days, until every child has 180 days of curriculum instruction, this amendment should not even be on the table. If he says that as the CEO of public education, why are we not going to hear what he has to say? They're going after him.
Yes.
Strong and hard.
That's right.
Strong and hard.
That's right. And in fact, our Attorney General has told boards of education, oh, you can't say anything as a group. Has told the superintendent of schools, oh, you have to take down the truth from your website. Okay, you're on company time, you're on state time. They don't say anything when they go to Republican convention on state time.
Amen.
They don't say, you know, that we just go on and on with this. But they're trying to muzzle us. But this is not about charter schools. Intimidate us. And the research shows us, all research is showing us, that charter schools aren't even a promising intervention for children. We know what works in schools. We know that we have to have real collaboration.
Yep.
We have to have highly qualified and trained teachers who are supported properly. You know, we have to have that. There is no way in the world that we would put a surgeon in a hallway in a hospital and say, perform open heart surgery. But we'll do that to our teachers in a minute. We'll put them in the closet to teach. We will. We won't give them what they need.
Nor would we have a dentist working our mouth without graduating from dental school.
That's true.
But we're fine with that for teachers.
And when we hear people talk about choice already exists. There are magnet schools. There are special schools. I mean, they already exist if you just look at them. You know, I'm not going to talk about a particular superintendent in Atlanta, but that superintendent went out and she raised a lot of money for Atlanta public schools, and that's why those classrooms were smaller. Okay? They want to say, oh, they cheated. Remember now, thousands and thousands of students went through. They only talked about 178 educators. Didn't prove anything on most of them. Some of them just went on about their business, got tired of foolishness.
That's right.
But when we look at the technology centers, the law centers, the School of Engineering, et cetera, that existed in those Atlanta public schools right now, because that superintendent raised the money when the last governor was busy cutting money from those school systems, and all the special needs children in that school district. And believe it or not, over half of those children come from impoverished homes in the city of Atlanta, our capital. So that's not told. That's not told. So our schools perform well. We said that we have to have highly qualified teachers, highly trained, continuous support, the environment, professional environment, for those teachers to be able to operate as professionals. We have to have a wide, varied curriculum. We don't have that. We're so busy teaching what the tests say, no child left behind, okay? We are so busy with that until we don't have industrialized arts, technological centers, art, performing arts, or, you know, we forgot all about that. So where's the money for that? And this man is constantly cutting, and now he's saying, give me more money? Give me more money? All right?
You know, did you see disclosures yesterday?
I did get a chance to look at it.
So the interesting thing that I think you should know is there are only about 5 people funding this effort to pass this constitutional amendment.
Who are they?
5 people or entities, essentially persons with lots of money. And I turned to my colleagues.
She's not talking about Walmart that don't want to pay a living wage,
I was going to
but
say.
they're funding this.
I was going to say.
Go ahead, Tracy.
I sent out the disclosure report to my colleagues, and I was shocked. $2.8 million spent so far on the other side of this. That's $2.8 million they could have done, gave them to the schools that they support.
That's right.
Yes.
Or their families.
Or their families.
Also, there are organizations, and we're going to call the name of them because you'll need to know in the future. You know, American Legislative Exchange Council.
ALEC.
A lot of people know about them. These are corporations who are actually sitting down and playing golf.
Wait, let me say, ALEC.
Shaping legislation.
ALEC shapes legislation on all of the issues that you care about, but you have no input on. They have championed voter ID legislation across this country.
That's right.
So if the people who champions that legislation champions this constitutional amendment, as Michael Thurman would say, consider the source. Consider the source. but they use our children and parade our children, and I'll say pimp our children,
That's right. Say it.
You're right.
Yeah.
and emotionally blackmail parents, communities, to get you to say yes. Guess where all that money's going to end up? They'll refund, they'll fund education, but it'll go to for-profit management companies with CEOs and boards who get paid your tax dollars, who are not accountable to you, who you can't change the structure, because you would have passed a constitutional amendment allowing it.
Alec also introduced 60 forms of voucher bills year before last across the United States. 60 different forms.
You guys know what a voucher is, right?
And when we look at who our chair people are and some of the committees at the State House, they're members of ALEC, many of them are.
Many of them.
Yep. And vying for ALEC credibility and recognition and money on the backs of our children. Every legislative session, and let me mention this, every year in January we open a new legislative session, and always there's a bunch of education legislation that passes, and those pieces are only impacting public schools.
That's right.
They don't impact state charter schools. They don't impact private schools. They only impact the 1.6 million kids throughout this state that are in public education. So if there's a whole discussion about, oh, this legislation will create competition, bring it. But make sure that the stage is the same. You can't have a bunch of regulations on one entity, none on the other, and go, hey, that's competition. That's not fair. Lower the regulations for traditional public schools and let us compete at the same level. And then the other piece, as Verdelia reminded me, which is something, if I didn't talk about, I'd get in trouble, is teacher certification. The Georgia Professional Standards Commission takes educators through a process in order for them to be certified to be in our classrooms with our children. Okay? That requirement is not in place for charter schools.
That's correct. Right.
Why would you stand for that, but require it of our traditional schools? We have to have a level of accountability, even with our teachers, which we're happy to do, but then don't compare us to those who are not certified.
There you go.
But there's a game here. Tracy and I about almost finished. The game is a school right now under a local board of education is watched their understandings. These new schools will make up their standards. And charters presently are granted a charter, I believe, for 5 years. You think about this, I think that the gubernatorial term will be over in 2 years. My term is at bat, because I'm governor right now. I passed this thing. I don't care if the next governor is a libertarian. I don't care if it's a right-wing Democrat. I don't care what it is. So I'm not looking at the future and the implications. I'm looking at my bank account right now.
Yep.
We know who this governor appoints to various positions. We know the deals being cut for campaign managers with land. I don't know if y'all been keeping up with that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Our government is being held hostage. And when we look at our public schools, those schools which educate everyone, those schools where we learn the preamble to the Constitution, where we learned what the Declaration of Independence was about, that we learned to value our country and our land, where we learned about what was right and what was wrong and those values. Those are the institutions that this governor is saying should be destroyed. That is what he's saying. Now, the scripture says, the least that you do to my little one, you do to me.
Amen.
You do to me. These people can't know Jesus. Or they might know his name. Now, may I go there, Representative Brooks? They might know his name. But let's talk about what being born again means. So, not only, we got to get back to the church, not only do we have to take our government back, we're going to have to go back to what works. God's Christ said, we're the same, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. We're going to have to go back to what works. We've forgotten, and I'm ashamed to say it, Tracy. Well, I shouldn't be, but when history has shown us, I'm talking to my people now. Ramona says I can do this.
Go ahead.
There's a certain group of folk, not widespread, but there are some chieftains, Representative Brooks, that sold us over the water.
That's right.
We have some people right now walking in our community.
Say it.
They have made the bedrock of their careers on these children.
right.
They sound real good on everything else. But how much arsenic do you need to put in your water before you drop dead? These folk are doing us a disservice. The American Federation of Children. Look it up. See who they support. See who's helping to run it. See who they're married to. Look at some of these folk who are making these policies who are unemployed or underemployed and what they are going to make off of the backs of our children. With that said, I'm going to say vote no. We have signs downstairs. We brought 72 with us. We're going to ship some more down this Lucas if you all need them. We want you to take those signs. We have literature. We bought about 4,000 pieces with us today. If everyone in here would take 150 pieces and pass out so many by November the 6th, we'd appreciate it. We also have talking points. You can go on the website of votesmart.com.
Vote Smart Georgia.
VoteSmart Georgia. Join with the Georgia PTA, the Georgia Women League of Voters, the Retired Educators of Georgia, Professional Association of Georgia Educators, the Georgia Association of Educators, Georgia Federation of Teachers, the Georgia School Board Association, which also had to win a suit during this time. And also the Georgia Superintendents Association, I'm sure I'm leaving out, SCLC, NAACP, Gabio, the
Southern Leadership.
Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
Yes, and the
Gabio.
Rainbow Push.
Rainbow, we can't all be wrong.
Yeah, we can't all do
Join with us and help us to get the word out. And let's turn this thing around. Let's take our state back, not only on November 6th, but let's take it back 2 years from now. And I'm looking at Mr. Oppenheimer out of my right side over here, which is the man. We've already voted for you, Mr. Oppenheimer. This is the man you are. Wait till you hear it.
And we hold him accountable.
Yes, he wants to be held accountable. All right.
The other thing I want to mention, as Rodelia said, not just vote no, but go down ballot. I did some research yesterday. We have slippage rates. I did it by county. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
So we have to encourage everybody not just to vote in the presidential, but go all the way down the ballot and vote no.
That's right.
Okay? Thank you for your time.
When you look at the sponsors of this legislation, like Representative Jan Jones, Chip Rogers, just look at some of the other things they stand for. Remember when Milton County, before the Depression existed, and they needed help, and they ran to Fulton County to help them out? Well, how come Jan Jones is now talking about we need to divide the county again?
Come on.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.